is almost entirely viewed as something negative in America. If anybody even knows what socialism is, that I would argue that the majority of people who say socialism is evil, majority is a heavy word, a good chunk of people who say socialism is evil would have a very hard time defining what is socialism. But let's just say I'm wrong on that. I mean, so what is socialism, right? Obamacare is called socialist, and I would argue that it's not. And in the socialist camp, there's different arguments about what is a true socialist. North Korea and Cuba call itself socialist. The Soviet Union was socialist. George Bush's only strong ally, for the most part, in his push to the war in Iraq was Tony Blair of Britain, who called himself a socialist. He was a member of the Labour Party. The Labour Party is a non-Marxist, non-revolutionary socialist party. But he also was a big advocate of capitalism, of the free markets. But he calls himself a socialist. What's going on here? That's not what a communist, the Blues and Socialism would say. Well, essentially, people who claim to be socialists are believing that some aspect of the economy should be socialized, usually education and medicine as a given. And in fact, the majority of Western nations have socialized medicine. We in America don't. And Obamacare is trying to address that by forcing us to have insurance, which is the private sector. Okay? So the government's getting involved, making us go to the private sector to deal with our health care affordability and so forth, or forcing the private sector to do things. Okay? Now, in Britain and France, there's just the National Healthcare Service. And I just want to say something. Yes, you will hear people who complain about the quality of healthcare and socialized medicine setting, but you will also hear a lot of people who would militantly defend it, even sometimes ones that would consider themselves to be conservatives. I watched the Conservative Party, called the Conservative Party of Britain, on C-SPAN, where a member was saying, we and the Conservative Party will defend the National Healthcare Service better than the Labour Party or the Socialists. Margaret Thatcher never even attempted to abolish socialized medicine in Britain, although she did try to kind of put some sort of capitalist methods into the way it was ran. So I mean, let's look at this as an Americans. Let's say 911. I have an emergency. There is a huge I have a mob of crazy people shooting at me, and I go to my house and I call 911. And a SWAT team comes out, and a police force, and a fire department, and an ambulance. Well, let's skip the ambulance for a second. What bill am I being sent at the point of the SWAT team, the police department, and the fire department? Oh, I don't get a bill for that as I'm being attacked and shot at, right? And then I get wounded, and the ambulance comes to get me. Now what's my bill? I owed over $2,000 for a 5-minute ambulance ride, okay, several years ago. An American is comfortable getting a socialist police department, a socialist fire department, a socialist SWAT team, but not a socialist ambulance or medical care. And when I say socialist, meaning this. The police protect private property. They are actually defenders of capital in one sense. But what I mean is they are an institution paid for by taxes, not the private sector. And so whatever you think of police officers, that is a public institution. Okay? Same thing with the fire department and, in public education. We have many branches. The U.S. military, which is huge, is one of the largest socialist institutions in America, and many people feel very patriotic about the military, and yet at the same time they say that they're militantly anti-socialist. Where does the military get its money? Where does the soldier get his paycheck from? It's the taxpayers, right? that's a socialist institution. So I'm merely just pointing out that the majority of Americans already are socialists in some form. They just don't think about it or know it. For some reason, Americans are comfortable calling 911 and not having a bill charged to them for the fire department and other services when they're in a desperate situation, and they are okay having that taken out of their taxes. But then we talk about socialized medicine, and now you're worried we're going to look like a Soviet republic. It's pretty ridiculous, I think. And if you know, a person feels that there's some legitimate reason why to criticize certain socialist institutions, fair enough. But let's be honest, unless you're a hardcore libertarian, you have some socialist values, and you need to like accept that. All right. So I would like to welcome the majority of Americans into the socialist camp, even if it's just with a little s. All right, comrades.